Hi guys, welcome to the first episode of Two Peas in a Pod, a drop pod that is. I'm Dan.
And I'm Ben.
We are the Two Peas in a Pod. Today we want to talk to you about a few awesome things. So first we're going to go for on the painting desk, talk about what we've got at the moment that we're working on. Then we'll move on to some 40k. There's an imminent release coming up apparently, so we'll talk a bit about that.
Have they? They've kept that one quiet.
They have, haven't they? They have. They've not put anything out there at all about that at all. Nothing.
Oh.
We'll then move on to Age of Sigmar, into the mortal realms. We're going to talk a little bit about how Ben was completely misguided and a bit of a fool to start with, and didn't get involved in that. And then a bit about what we'd like to see in the future. And then finally, we're going to tell you a little bit about a hobby project we're going to be getting up to over the next few months, hoping that some of you come along for the ride. Thank you for joining us, guys. Let's crack on.
Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to talk now about what projects we've got going on our painting desk, which includes not just painting, but the gaming that we're up to too. And I'm going to start off and talk about the model that I've just painted, which when I first saw it in the White Dwarf, I thought was absolutely hideous. It's the Logan Grimnar Chariot, which I've got some stick from my mates for, I can tell you.
Ho, ho, ho.
Yeah. But actually, I really enjoyed painting it though, Dan. It was, it's a cracking model once it's put together. And yeah, okay, I get all the arguments about what the hell is it doing in the 40k universe? What has a wolf got to offer on a battlefield? But you know what? I just don't care. It's stunning. I loved it. I'm moving on to Logan Grimnar now. So I really don't care.
I think maybe the wolves could have been a bit bigger. I don't overtly, it is a bit absurd. Like, it is clearly part of a Viking longship.
Oh, it's blatantly absurd.
It's not the worst thing ever. Logan on the back actually is really, really good. I really like the Logan.
Yeah,
picture.
definitely. Yeah, I'm almost nervous to paint him. Actually, he's so
Yeah.
nice. I want to perhaps leave him for a little bit until I've settled in.
Yeah, well, maybe. Your painting's pretty good, mate. So I wouldn't worry too much. But I remember the first Logan miniature.
Yeah,
It's still one of my favourites. It's the first Terminator that they did that was actually dynamic.
Oh yeah.
And looked like he was doing something. And I just remember seeing it for the first time and just being blown away. And actually, I think I did start doing some Space Wolves off the back of it.
Oh, yeah.
I sprayed them Space Wolf Grey, which was quite bright.
Did you dip those?
No, I did. I didn't dip those. No, no, they avoided the paint pot treatment.
Yeah, I mean, recently I've been up to some restoration work, getting some old RBT 01 Space Marines back from the graveyard, and I'm going to post some of those pictures up on Facebook because I'm really proud of them. I got into the hobby just after those were phasing out, really, and they were in every magazine, every book that I was reading. There was pictures of them, and I really wanted some, but of course they weren't for sale anymore. So I never got any, but I've recently grabbed a box of bits off of eBay and stuck them, cleaned them, stuck them back together, and I think they look fab. That was quite an enjoyable project, actually, especially going back over all of the decals and the markings and seeing them now.
I was going to say, actually, mate, I'm glad you mentioned the transfers that you used, because you really went to town, didn't you? You went back and looked at Rogue Trader, picked up what the decals or what the markings would have been.
Yeah. And actually bought an old set of transfers as well. Yeah,
it was.
And
actually, to be honest, once you do a bit more of a modern paint job on them, which you did, a really nice one, I would add. They look ace.
They do.
They look ace. They might be old, but they look ace.
They're a bit short now, especially compared to their Primaris brothers.
Well, they're the new squat release, aren't they?
Yeah. And they are quite literally squatting, some of them.
Yeah.
So I'm moving on to some rhinos to finish that set off, but I don't know when I'm going to do those because I'm just learning how to use an airbrush thanks to Dan here. He's come talked me into it. and I'm kind of don't want to crack on with the tanks until I've got a bit better with the airbrush.
Good choice.
Always learning. I think that's one of the cool things about the hobby, isn't it? That actually there's so much, there's so many different things, there's so many aspects. If it's not a book, it's painting. If it's not painting models, it's making scenery. If it's not that, it's playing games. And you can just keep rotating. And I'm always learning new things. I don't think there's a month that goes by in this hobby where I'm not learning something new, which is cool.
Yeah, that's good. As long as you keep doing that.
Yeah.
Keep pushing yourself, and as long as you just keep actually doing some hobby, even a little bit, you'll improve.
And the thing is, actually, time-wise, that's quite challenging because we're both parents with small kids, and fitting in the hobby is challenging, and knowing when to stop the hobby is challenging as well, because it's a welcome distraction sometimes. Yeah. I'm sure we'll talk about our kids from time to time, won't we?
Yes. Yeah, it's one of the things we want to cover, isn't it? It's how do we find the time?
And bringing the children into the hobby. You know, yes, Tristan is my eldest lad. He's 5, and he absolutely loves the stuff. Or painted his first model recently, and it's interesting. I'll put a picture of that one up too. Brilliant. So, what's on your hobby desk at the moment, Dan?
Well, you're not going to like it. So, I am currently in the process of painting 2 rhinos for my corn army for 40k. So, I'm sorry, man. They're to go alongside another one which I've done, and I'll get pictures of these up as well. So, I really like the rhino kit. What I'm not so keen on is the Chaos Rhino people.
Just bits bolted on, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it looks a little bit like somebody got an old Victorian fence and stuck it on the side. That's what I always think. So, yeah, it does, doesn't it? It does.
It
That's
does
exactly
as well.
what it looks like. So what I wanted to do was make something that looked a bit more chaotic. Now, I haven't gone, because it's corn, I haven't gone mad and sort of mutated it to look like a slug with a troop compartment or some weird stuff like that. And I have seen some amazing stuff, but what I've gone for is a lot of the brass work. So I got some 2mm wide strips of plasticard. I've put them around it and then cut little triangles to be like spiky bits that go along as well. And I'll obviously get them up. And then little things like, so some of the upgrade stuff from the Chaos sprue is really good. So there's like skulls on chains, those have gone on there. The spears with heads on, those have gone on. But again, with the spear stuff, rather than just sticking it on, I've drilled holes in the tanks and tried to push them in so they look a bit more like they're part of the miniature, rather than just an addition. One of them,
and they're very cool, aren't they? All of that kind of
absolutely,
trophy taking stuff.
Now, I'm not one for paint. Like, I like my miniatures not too complicated with too many little details, because I'm quite impatient and I like to get stuff done. So I don't want to paint loads of stuff. So I haven't gone totally mental. One of them I've converted a bit to make the hull look a bit different, and then mounted a Havoc launcher on top of it. Not really for any game purposes. I just think it'll look good.
I really like the Havoc launcher, actually. Is that the one with the six tubes?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I think that's a great little addition, actually.
Yeah. So where am I up to with those? So those are currently, I'm painting all the brass work with the base colour. So I'm using Balthazar Gold for those. You'll find, listening to this, I use loads of different stuff. I do have the whole Citadel range, and I use it quite a lot. That makes up the core of my painting. But I also use a lot of Vallejo. Tamiya is my favourite when I get to airbrushing. Do use a bit of oils, more in my Heresy collection. Generally, I use what works and what's convenient, so it's really easy for me to pick up the colours.
And you're really good at painting tanks. It's worth it. I'm always impressed looking at your vehicles. Even your gaming table standard for me, I just think it looks fab. You do a cracking job with your airbrush and doing weathering, which is something I got to catch up with. Really, I'm a year behind at least on weathering. I kind of missed that hobby train.
It's interesting you mention that, because with the rhinos I was talking about, they're not weathered. because I started that project before I really looked to getting into that. So my Heresy army is weathered. Do you tend to see that more? So with the Rhinos, I haven't gone for weathering, but yeah, we'll definitely talk about weathering. I think.
Are you not going to?
No, I won't. I won't be weathering them because I don't want to go back over the army.
Okay, yeah.
Which I would need to do if I weathered them. I maybe I will at some point, but it's not. I'm happy with the look of it. Unweathered, to be honest.
Yeah.
What was I going to say after that? And I got talking about. Oh yes, the nice thing about weathering that I like is it can be quite a quick process, especially for a tabletop standard.
Yeah.
So obviously, like many things, at the high end level, at the competition level, it's incredible and it's not quick. But at the level at which I'm looking to paint, and we'll talk about, my thoughts around what to aim for painting wise at some point. I really like it. So with the Rhinos, where they're red, all the red's done. I'm just working on the brass work. The red is just corn red, Agrax Earthshade, bit more corn red, and an edge of Evil Sun Scarlet. So keeping it nice and simple. And then say up to Balthazar Gold, and I'm hoping that by the time we record the next one, they'll be done, because Khorne Berserkers are amazing, and they need to get around the battlefield. You've got to trap them inside.
Oh. They need to get around the battlefield, because actually they're so stupid, they get lost and just wander off.
I'm not going to sit here and defend them. When we do the gaming segment, after we've played our first game, we'll see what's to be said.
It's worth pointing out our first game with 8th edition.
First game with 8th edition. So that's painting death.
Gaming wise, there's quite a few developments actually, isn't there? For me, I've just managed to find myself a new gaming club, which is pretty cool because down where I live in Bodmin, which is Cornwall. For those of you listening from other countries, if we have listeners from other countries, which would be quite exciting. That's the sort of foot on the end of Britain, and it's literally the arse end of nowhere. And all of the gaming clubs were a good hour's drive away from me. But fortunately, someone's just set one up just down the road. So rather than trying to coerce my wife into playing games of 40k, I've now got a club to go down and play. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, I was very excited when you told me that happened, because I always feel for you a bit. Because you're a bit out of the way down there trying to find gaming buddies. I'm really lucky, so I'm in Bristol. Number of gaming venues in Bristol. I go to see Jim a lot down at Bristol Independent Gaming. Really enjoy that. He hasn't paid me anything to shout that out. I just genuinely really enjoy it. What's really cool about Jim and about Big is it's a developing story. So when you first go in, certainly when I first went in, I was a bit like, oh wow, I can do better than this at home. But what Jim keeps doing is investing in the range of products he holds, but also the quality of his gaming tables. He's always great for a chat. Certainly in the last year or so, he seems to have a real wealth of knowledge. And I'm lucky in that the games workshops that are near me are also good. But I would say...
And you've got 2 games workshops near you.
I've got 2 games workshops near me in Bristol, yeah. And one of them is open until 9 o'clock at night, which I have used in the past. when I was overcome by the need for a box of Possessed at 8:30 at night.
Hang on, we need to pause there. You were overcome for the need for a box of Possessed. We now have your heresy recorded.
We do.
For prosperity, so that I can beat you around the head with it the next time I'm seeing you.
Do you not agree, though, right? If you're going to have a good game, you need both sides, don't you?
Yeah, we've had this conversation before, and actually it's a really important point, because I completely agree. I don't want to be kicking the snot out of your salamanders, and I don't want to be kicking the snot out of your ultramarines. I do want to be kicking the snot out of your Khorne army, and using them to lubricate the treads on my tanks. And I think that probably works both ways, doesn't it? So I think it's worth having, for me, as much as I absolutely hate chaos, I do enjoy painting them, because they do open up a wealth of kind of painting opportunities. And the same goes for all the other armies. Really. Eldar particularly love painting those, and orcs. I've always wanted to really get stuck into orc painting because there's some interesting use of other colours in orcs. So using purples on their skin tones, that you can get some really awesome skin tones that I'd love to try out, but never really got around to it. And I think having those armies available so other people have got something to play against is really important. So that you can have a range of battles rather than forcing each other to have Space Marine versus Space Marine, which can happen a lot. And working in Games Workshop, I saw that happen a lot because everyone loves Space Marines, understandably, and most people have an army of Space Marines.
Well, we're really fortunate, aren't we? So we're quite far into our hobby journey, as it were.
Yeah.
You know, when you're just starting out, you just want to collect what's cool, what you think is cool. And there's always an element of that, obviously, but this goes back a bit to the hobby visions we talked about in the intro episode we recorded.
Yeah,
it's about being part of a community. So where I am, or within my small group of guys that I play against at the moment, which I'm hoping will grow, most of them, in fact all of them, were Imperial players. Now, I love the Imperium. I love the diversity. I've got an Ultramarine army. I really wanted to grow it and add to it, but I don't want to just play my Ultramarines versus Blood Angels all the time. Yeah. So, when Age of Sigmar came out, I used that as a springboard into doing Khorne because they were in the starter set, and then from there, it's not a big step across to 40k Khorne.
Yeah, no, and it's the Khorne in the Age of Sigmar starters kit are absolutely stunning models. They really, really are. Apart from that big beast thing, I just can't work out what the hell is going on with his head. It's just like a little tiny head. Oh yeah, what is going on there?
Well, he's obviously a bit dim, isn't he? So he doesn't need a big head.
Khorne.
Yeah. so that's on the painting guest, guys. We're going to pop off now and have a quick break. Join us again, and we'll be talking about the new 40k, which could be just around the corner.
Catch you later, guys.
Hi guys, welcome back. So we are moving on to talk about I'm sure none of you've realised it's coming, the imminent release of the new Warhammer 40,000 8th edition, and we're actually sat here on the eve of greatness. It's out tomorrow, which is really, really exciting. We're both buzzing for it. So, Ben, come on then. What are your thoughts as we wait upon the cusp of something awesome?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been so excited about the release of a 40k, and I don't know whether that's because the build-up has been so long, and it has been so long, or whether it's just that they didn't do a box set for the last one, so I feel a little bit kind of like this is the first box set in ages. Yeah, I'm dead excited about it. I can't wait to get my hands on it. And if the mailman doesn't turn up tomorrow with my box of models, I'm going to be pretty upset. So if you hear a noise bellowing across Cornwall, that'll be me shouting out in despair.
There's been a disturbance in the force.
Absolutely.
Ben has not received his box set.
It'd be like the Darth Vader waking up as Darth Vader for the first time at the end of the episode 3. Although that probably is best struck from the science fiction record, if we're being honest. No,
maybe. Not the time and the pace for that debate, but yeah, maybe one day.
We've had mixed opinions about it, though, haven't we, Dan? We've been going through ups and downs, especially about the Primaris Marines. But I think now everything's settled, we're both pretty buzzing for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's been a bit of an odd one for me because I am quite an excitable fellow. It has been known from time to time.
No, come on, that's a bit harsh on yourself.
Yeah. So I'm massively excitable about Games Workshop. Pretty much they release something new and I'm just, that's amazing. Really, really like it. So when Primaris Marines hit, I started off by being exciting because they are new Space Marines. but I've gone through a real up and down, which is quite odd. And it's largely about what the Primaris mean for standard Space Marines. And just by saying standard Space Marines,
it's kind of the point, isn't it?
In itself is the point. Yeah, the Space Marines are not standard. They are incredible, and this next generation of Space Marines, for me, somehow it just lessens Space Marines that little bit. And I think it's a combination. It's not just the background, it's also the miniatures, because they won't. I don't know. Lots of people will disagree with this, and Games Workshop officially would disagree with this, but I don't think they will fit together. I just don't. I do not envisage adding Primaris Space Marines to my current Ultramarine army. I certainly don't envisage Primaris Marines being part of a new force that I build, where I then go out and purchase the current range of Marines. So I think that's a great shame, because there's some fantastic models in the Space Marine range. But now that we're just around the corner, having seen the miniatures in the flesh, and also comparing back to what happened with the Stormcast. So the Stormcast boomed from a tiny little, bit in a box set into this awesome range of miniatures, and we're going to see the same. Well, we're going to see better than.
But a lot of people really didn't have had a lot of strong feelings about the Stormcast, didn't they? I mean, they were a completely new direction.
Well, it's an emotional hobby, isn't it? It's a really emotional hobby. It is emotion. I remember being told once that when we were selling product, what we were doing is selling emotion or creating emotion. Because when you buy your miniatures, you buy them because they have a positive, they generate positive emotional response. That's a bit deep now. That's getting a bit crazy, but that's fundamentally what it is. And getting a bit philosophical. But, now I've seen the miniatures, and I'm so excited about the way they interact. So things like the Ancient, the Banner Bearer, impacting models within 6 inches, the guy in Gravis armor, the Captain, impacting guys within 6 inches, the Lieutenants impacting guys. I love that kind of synergy, and the fact that the freedom it gives them. It's always so frustrating. Command squads, what the hell was going on with that? Like, every book you read, it's like, how often does it say, Brother Amadeus was everywhere at that time, or something crazy like that? And then you're like, well, no, he isn't actually, because he's going around with his mates in the command squad. So I'm really excited.
Those kind of those effects aren't just about the Primaris Space Marines, and I think that's going to be a really cool rule change, that apothecaries aren't just stuck there putting plasters on the captain and his drinking buddies.
Yeah, they can literally move to the
has an effect on everyone.
The part of the table,
to where the battle is. For me, actually, going back to what you were saying about will they fit in with an army? Well, having just done some Rogue Trader Marines, one of the things that I feel is actually models are timeless in a sense, and those Rogue Trader models look just as good in some ways as the Space Marines next to them, even though they're about a foot shorter in reality, in scale. And the Primaris Space Marines stuck in the middle of an army, I think for me, it's not just about how they look as models. They will fit. We'll make them fit. I'll make them fit. I'll model them and hobby them up so that they look like they're part of my Space Wolf force. But I think the key thing for me is trying to explain what the hell is going to be the reaction, the emotion, the relationship between an Astartes and a Primaris Marine. I mean, now we know that they can upgrade to be Primaris Marines. Why in the hell would you not do that? I mean, if you're Ragnar Brackmane, a renowned Space Wolf captain, Wolf Lord, why would you not upgrade? Because it would just be ridiculous.
The only reason is because you're dead.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if your whole purpose in life is to stride around the galaxy, kicking the shite out of everything that stands against the Imperium, then you're going to do what's necessary to make yourself better at that. And if that's training every day, it's training every day. If it's having your arm replaced with a bionic one, it's doing that. If it's getting upgraded to be a Primaris Space Marine, you're going to do it. So for me, I think I'm really keen to get my hands on Dark Imperium, the book. I'm really keen to read about how they're interacting, what the Space Marines think about all this, and what the Primaris think of the Space Marines, because, I mean, that's an interesting question. These guys are brand new, and they're going to be dropped into a brotherhood, and they're going to stick out like sore thumbs, because they're going to be better in a lot of ways, but theoretically worse, because they're not as experienced as the Space Marines, so I think there's a lot to explore there.
Interesting as well that in the artwork, that awesome chamber scene where Gilliman is stood there and Call unveils his creation. And I know, like, Gilliman was expecting, maybe a squad, maybe a company, possibly a chapter, and then Call's like, well, no, actually, look, boom, and they're all in little pods, and it begs the question. So a normal Space Marine, Marine, guys selected at sort of age 12, goes through all the training, the ridiculous trials, etc., etc. Then is genetically, starts getting implanted with the gene seed and all the organs, etc. And it takes years and years to become a Space Marine. Now, has Call gone around the galaxy gathering up likely aspirants, and they're in those chambers because that's like generating them into the Primaris, or is he growing them? Are they clones? Where have they all come from?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because if they have been just created from scratch, then they're going to be essentially children in some ways when they come out, which is odd when you think about it. But
well, it is odd because one of the things that's often stated by detractors of Space Marines is they have got no personality and they're too boring. But actually, they have got a personality and a humanity, and that's what led to the heresy. But it's also what makes them interesting, really, I suppose. And different chapters have it to different degrees. The Salamanders are humanity, champions of humanity. The common folk. The Ultramarines are more your defenders of the Imperium as a concept, I suppose. Your Space Wolves are your have a laugh and have a beer guys.
And also, one of the I'd like to point out, one of the defenders of humanity. They've got themselves in a few fights with the Inquisition.
Yes,
over
that is true. Yeah, they have. Yeah.
But so I suppose we've got a lot to look forward to with that, haven't we? Because we're both avid Black Library fans, and I'm sure they'll come up with some cracking stories to unfold that. But I'm still on the fence when it comes to the background. I'm definitely not on the fence when it comes to the models. Those guys just look amazing, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on them tomorrow. Very much so. But let's move on from the Primaris Space Marines and think about the game as a whole, because I didn't play 7th edition. That was more because I was doing some exams which took all of my time. But actually, had 7th edition been less complicated, I probably would have got stuck in. I think there was so much going on with that system that as someone who hadn't played for a while, it was really intimidating. So I'm quite excited to have the slate wiped clean just as I'm getting back into the hobby, having finished all of my qualifications. And it's kind of fortuitous. It's good timing, so I can get stuck in with a new rule system. And actually looking at the rule system and listening to people's feedback, it sounds like it's going to be much slicker, doesn't it, Dan? Much faster.
Yeah, it does. So I've had a chance to play it a couple of times, little intros, and it is very slick. It's not too ambiguous, which is good. I think the point for me, and it's Ben, I think you're a great example of this, is if you are coming back to the hobby, or if you are coming to the hobby for the first time, this is going to be a lot more accessible. Or even if you're in the hobby and you just want to do a new army, you aren't going to need an absolute mountain of books. It will facilitate you using awesome miniatures a lot more.
Yeah, and I'm really keen to start doing some narrative battles rather than because I'm not big into competitive stuff. I absolutely love narrative battles.
And the addition of power levels, I love the power levels for narrative. That's really cool. And yeah, the 3 ways to play, letting people embrace the hobby they want to play.
Yeah.
Not bogging things down. And to be honest, it seems to have received a really good review. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it will go really well, and Games Workshop will continue to push it and support it, and the hobby will continue to grow. I hope so. I really hope so.
I will be out of a podcast. We'll have to change. It'll be 2Ps talking about something else.
Something else. It won't be for everybody. Some people won't make the transition. I think it'll be a lot smaller percentage than the number of people that didn't make the transition from 8th into Age of Sigmar, or certainly at the outset anyway. It won't be for everyone. That, there'll be people that love 7th, and I enjoy 7th. I play Heresy. That uses at its core the 7th edition rules.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem, but then maybe that's because my Heresy games are a bit more relaxed. I don't play in highly competitive environments. I've been to a couple of narrative events that were really good fun. So you never really have to get into the minutiae of the rules.
Yeah.
At that level.
I think with 30k though, it solved one of the big problems with 7th edition, which was the imbalance in the force. They're all Space Marines basically, and the rules have been balanced from the start again. So actually it works in a lot of ways, whereas I think one of the things that I've noticed and put me off getting back in is the amount of bitching about power armies, about if you play Tau, Eldar.
But I think you've just got to be careful, because when you, like yourself, don't have a hobby community around you, even if you do, often, especially if your main source of the hobby is the internet,
that's very true.
What you see is the vocal group. Now, I'm not saying 7th was perfect. It definitely wasn't. And I'm not saying that there wasn't armies that seemed to perform better or worse. There definitely was. But with regards to people bitching about it, people will complain and moan no matter what edition it is. I think it's the approach you want to take when you're gaming. And yeah, I get it. It must be really frustrating. If you're a competitive player and you're in it for the competition, it must be frustrating. And that's why I'm really glad that there's a new edition for those guys. But if you're a narrative player, it
doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter. But what I am really excited about is they released some little snippets, and a lot of the missions I remember from 3rd edition, which is really cool, because there's like some ambush ones and some diagonal ones. So that's really good. I'm excited about that, about the mission. I'm just excited about digging in and playing.
Yeah, definitely.
It's going to be great.
Definitely.
Really, really good.
I think the thing I'm most looking forward to is the fact that it's going to be a fluid and evolving edition with things like that. They're talking about the chapter approved.
Yeah,
I've actually got a couple of chapter approved from 2003 sat on my shelf. So it's nice to see that back, and I think that's going to make a real difference, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's been billed as the General's Handbook of 40k. So we know, and we'll talk about it more in the AOS segment probably, but we know that the General's Handbook is going to be updated yearly to keep the game fresh and try and provide balance, and it's going to be done so with lots of feedback from the community, which is a fantastic direction. It's really good. So yeah, I completely agree. It's great to see that. It's great to see celebration of the past, There was a time when you didn't mention Epic, you didn't mention Gothic, you didn't mention any of that stuff. That happened, There was a time when it wasn't, and probably. Well, no, actually, I was going to say probably because we were in Games Workshop, and that's what we were, we were sort of told. But even
there was actually a time where we were discouraged from letting people play specialist games.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
in the shop,
still,
wasn't there?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and actually that'll be an interesting conversation for some time. Is the whole, in a gaming store, do you let people play games that you can't sell?
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting one, but one for another time. I think there's lots of aspects to that. But what's great now is there's this real pride in what in the 40k in all the universes, in all the IP, and what's gone before, and bringing it forward and building on it, and that's just fantastic. And you can see that in this version of White Dwarf. People have got White Dwarf now with the new edition in it. They talk to the painters that do the artwork. They're really excited, and they're talking about evolution. You just get the sense that everybody's really proud of it. This edition, really happy to have worked on it, which is fantastic.
And talking about like harking back to the past, at Warhammer Fest they were talking about painting decals on the Primaris Space Marines, which is decals and flat surface painting are a really interesting part of painting, because in second edition, Space Marines didn't have a lot going on them, so a lot of the detailing was done by painting it on. And we're talking about favourite models, but my favourite model was a Terminator Captain with a grenade launcher on his fist. I think that's an iconic model for me. And one of the things that sticks out is that really complicated design on his left shoulder pad. And now you're seeing those same designs, those same patterns coming onto the Primaris Space Marine, the stripes down the helmet, the checkered patterns on the knee pads, even the fact that they've got lieutenants back. That's a big step back in some ways. That's harking right back to to even Rogue Trader and the organisation of Space Marine chapters in Rogue Trader. They've definitely tipped their hat to the right from where it started, and I'm really excited to see that. And I'm really excited to see what they do with the other armies as well, because that's going to be wicked.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
I think, and their release schedule's fast enough that we're going to see a lot of armies soon.
The release schedule's insane, and if you pay attention to the job applications, Games Workshop keep looking for like trainee mold makers and heavy metal painters. They're not going to decrease the size of the studio,
No.
And certainly if their financial performance continues the way it has been trending, there would be no need. Just keep going. So anyway, that's a bit about what we think about 8th edition. Obviously, us, along with many others, are looking forward to picking it up, and in the next podcast I'm sure we'll talk about first impressions.
Tomorrow. Yeah, it's coming tomorrow.
Yes, it's correct.
Tomorrow.
This is pretty exciting, isn't it, indeed? Cool. So, up next, guys, we're going to move away from the grim darkness of the future and go and have a little wander around the mortal realms. Talk a bit about Age of Sigmar and the hobby we do with that. So, we're going to pop off, have a quick break, grab a cup of tea. I suggest you do the same, and we'll be back shortly.
Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to talk now about Age of Sigmar.
Age of Sigmar.
So, Age of Sigmar for me is quite a new thing, because I quite literally threw my toys at the pram when they got rid of the Warhammer universe. I don't think I'm alone in that. There's been a fair few.
Yes, you are.
No, mate. There's been a few people that's been equally as upset. I have videos I've seen of people burning their armies. Which is a totally ridiculous thing to do, but each to their own. So for me, actually, Age of Sigmar is quite a new thing. I'm just exploring the universe, and I'm really enjoying it. Actually, I think the first time I really got where they were going.
You know why you're really enjoying it, Ben?
What is that?
'Cause it's freaking awesome.
But yeah, and it's true, it is awesome. But I didn't get where they were going until I went and saw the hobby hall, the miniature hall.
Yeah, absolutely. You walk in that door,
and there's that floating island, Sigmarines versus Khorne. It's just. And the moment I walked through the door, I saw that and I thought, I get this. I get what they're trying to do now. Whereas before, it just felt like they just...
I was really fortunate because I was there. I was there the day Ben realised, and it was good. It was fantastic.
So music,
yeah.
a choir of angels.
Yeah. A choir of angels descended on bolts of lightning.
Yeah.
Nah, mate, over the moon to hear you say that, because I know that I made reference earlier in the podcast to how I get really excited, and Age of Sigmar is a classic example. Straight away, flipping loved it. Straight in there, was in there at midnight in Games Workshop, bought my set, absolutely loved Age of Sigmar. The next day, we drove to Warhmmer World and played it. We were the only people, the day after the launch, the only people playing Age of Sigmar in Warhammer World. It was a real shame. But that was the past. So I flipping love it. And I saw a map. There's a map drawing in the main book. And it shows like all these different levels, and it talks about the mortal realms. And I just got it straight away. I just flipping love it. And a little bit like Avatar with the floating islands and stuff like that. Yeah. For me, that is the mortal realms. And don't get me wrong, I loved the Warhammer World. I absolutely love the Warhammer. It is a fantastic setting. It's still a fantastic setting. There's going to be a Warhammer Fantasy roleplay. There's a new one of those coming out. We've still got great, really good computer games, if that floats your boat. Let's be honest, I've still got my 8th edition rulebooks up in the loft. And my High Elf army is next to me. If I want to play in the Warhammer World and defend Ulthuan, I can. It's a great setting. But my goodness, the Mortal Realms is incredible. It is just so mystical and so magical, and the stuff you can do with the terrain.
He's not getting paid for this, by the way.
Mate, I absolutely.
We're not taking commission.
I am buzzing for Age of Sigmar right now. I've got 3,500 points of Stormcast that I painted up just because I was like, I've got to do it.
You have to put photos of that army up because
I'll get some up.
It's an amazing army. Really,
so
really
what
good
I love.
Army.
So I've done little objectives because to represent where the prosecutors throw in their spears and Sigmar bolts of lightning them in. I flipping love it, and the gameplay is so good. I played in a tournament recently, and I think I came middle of the table. I came 5th, I think. There was only 13 people, to be fair. It wasn't like some massive thing, but it was good fun. And I love how the rules work. I love the fact that you can move around so freely. There's less little bits of arguments and stuff. Yeah. And the more background that I read, the more stuff I see. I've just got Warhammer Skirmish and read about Shadespire, and it's just so good. It's so fantastical, and the realm gates and the all gates, and there's in one of them, I think it's god beasts. Is it god beasts?
I don't know.
The dwarves have to go, and what is it they do? They basically, whole armies are climbing up chains that are attached to a dragon, a big fire dragon dude, and burning up to hammer like a rune into its side. Like chains that are so big, the links are so big, armies can work. It's just amazing. It's just so flipping fantastic.
And I think
I quite like it. I do quite like it.
Really? I mean, it hasn't come across. I think the thing about this new setting, wiping the slate clean, is actually that they've got an opportunity to expand things a lot more and come up with new ideas. I mean, we've just seen that with the Caradon Overlords, and when I first saw them, I loved them all. I love floating airships. In almost any fantasy setting, I love floating airships.
I do want a dwarven version of Robert De Niro dressed as a woman.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's the image I have in my head is that film as well, and I forgot the name of it now.
Stardust.
Stardust, brilliant. But actually, again, once more, I didn't get it fully until I saw the gaming table
board that you
at Warhammer Fest. Oh man, with the clouds and the airships coming up through the clouds and the boarding parties and the harpoons, and I saw that and I thought,
I think
brilliant.
All this just points to the fact that I live in a fantastical world in my head, because I just yeah, I just get Age of Sigmar. I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to think of some proper reasons though, aren't I? Because all I've said so far is it's fantastic.
Yeah, you haven't really backed it up with anything other than I just love it, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's true. The variety. So the variety's great. The variety of the mortal realms. So you've got the 8 mortal realms at the moment. One for each of the laws of magic that are really themed around that. Magical. So I really like that variety. That means that you can have armies. So you can have dwarves that are fire dwarves, and then you've got dwarves that are in the air in the realm of metal because they've got aether gold, which allows them to float around. And the fantastical level of it, it's just taken to the level where anything is possible. In a magical way. And I think I'm excited to build battlefields that reflect that. And that display you mentioned, Ben, really captured for me the mortal realms with the floating islands and the impossible things, you know?
Yeah, and you could totally have a game like that where actually, you know, there is dead space where you can't go unless you're an airship.
Yeah,
and that's totally possible.
And that's really exciting. And the Warhammer world was a fantastic, and it is a fantastic world. No, I'm not
now.
You know, I invested a lot of time and money, and I loved the Warhammer world. Don't get me wrong. And one of the great things about the Warhammer world, it was something that Lord of the Rings has, which is a kind of a realism to it.
Yeah.
So, okay, it was more fantastical than Lord of the Rings, definitely, but it's still. Gravity was still a thing. In the Warhammer world, wasn't it?
Well, she thinks so. People weren't floating around.
No, which means also that the size of beasts, etc., was restricted because of that sense of realism. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That just is what it was. That you don't have that in the mortal realms. So there is gravity. People stay on the floor, but then in other areas there's not. People float around. There's a bit where there's a giant worm. There's a giant worm that keeps this bowl of molten silver and it overflows. And there's a waterfall down to another part of the realm, and Dracothian comes along, who's the good guy, big Stardrake guy, and chases this silver worm away, the Argentine worm. And so that it's not warming up the bowl of metal, and so the waterfall slowly solidifies, so that the Stormcast army that's at the bottom can climb the waterfall to get to the top. It's incredibly fantastical, and it's freed up the miniatures designers. So you've got round bases. You haven't got we've got to rank up. Oh, I've stabbed my spear into his butt type thing going on.
It's so hard sometimes to model a decent unit when they had to rank up. The Black Hawks just were appalling. I went to put them together for the Games Workshop Plymouth, and I could not get them to fit together. I ended up having to do some fairly serious hack jobs to get them all to fit into the movement tray.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore.
But
for me, that realism actually is really important, because the mortal realms, I get the fantastical side of it, but there has to be a personal level. There has to be
and there always will be, because
the struggle of individuals, and they have to be, the humans desperately trying to defend against chaos. For me, that was so much a part of Warhammer Fantasy, and it was only when I found that again in the mortal realms that actually I was able to sort of let the Warhammer world not die, but rest in peace, I suppose. And now I'm pretty excited about starting a new army for Age of Sigmar, rather than my old elves. But slightly disappointed there isn't an elf range out yet, but I'm hoping that's going to change soon.
Elves are gone, man. They're not in Age of Sigmar.
Oh, don't. That will be me throwing my toys out of the pram completely.
Again.
Again. Yeah. But I'm quite excited about that.
So what are you gonna do something in the interim? I know you've got the starter set.
Yeah, it's difficult because I really love is it Sylvaneth?
Yeah.
Love them.
The tree people.
Yeah, and I've got a few wood elves kicking around, so I might do something to do with those. But actually, I think I'd quite like to do a high elf army using the Age of Sigmar stuff, and then add to it when the elf stuff comes out. Yeah, I mean, it's lots to choose from. I'm not really having to think about it, but baby steps at the moment, because actually, really, the most of my time is going to be taken up with 8th edition 40k, which we've just spoken about. So
you've started reading the background now, haven't you?
I've read it. Yeah, I read the core rule book. Yeah, spent the whole time reading the core book. Okay, so when do the elves come? Or when do the elves? I got to the end. I was like, oh, where's the damn elves? So immediately on the phone to Dan, going, all right, so where's the elves? It's like, no, they're not there yet, man. They're gone.
They'll be back.
Yeah, I hope so.
And you only have to look at the other ranges to be excited.
Oh yeah, and the elf model in Warhammer Quest. Oh man, was it good to see Warhammer Quest again after all this time? Yeah, love that. Loved the old one. Loved Hero Quest. Loved Advanced Hero Quest. Love. The best thing about Hero Quest is the box.
Yeah, we might have to link that on the page, I think.
Well, for the people who haven't seen it, yeah. Yeah, so I'm quite excited about Age of Sigmar. Probably not quite as excited as Dan, but
yeah, I think you and a lot of other people, mate. It's no secret. In fact, Games Workshop themselves talk about the journey that Age of Sigmar's gone on as a game.
Yeah,
I think a lot of miniatures companies, some of the smaller ones, have really been able to increase their player base because of what went on. Certainly, you'd never seen Kings of War played until this happened, and or I hadn't anyway. And then, of course, there's the 9th Age community, which is growing, or grown, or what have you. Certainly in the area where I game, I see them playing, and there's a big tournament recently. So it's nice if people can continue to enjoy their hobby and what they've invested in it. But ultimately, if we are to keep our Games Workshop and their fantastic models, it needs to sell miniatures.
Yeah. I think they made a lot of mistakes with Sigmar, though, didn't they? I didn't think the release was done anywhere near as well.
No, I was really disappointed by the lack of passion in the stores I went into.
Well, I don't think they sold it to their staff members. I think it was so unexpected. It was, there's going to be a new edition of Warhammer Fantasy, and here it is, and it's not Warhammer Fantasy, and oh well, suck it up. And there were so many questions. I had so many questions at the time. I was like, hang on a minute. What have you done? Why have you got rid of it? And where the hell is the points values? And so many things that just weren't answered. Their reasoning, their methodology, why they'd got there, what they were trying to do. All of that seemed really elusive. And in some ways, the fact that they've done that and had to learn, they've done things like the General's Handbook, they've done new things that they haven't tried before, and that has really played dividends, because actually now this new 40k release feels like they've learned a ton of lessons from Age of Sigmar, and now I feel like we're in a position when we've got 2 really accessible games. The 40k release feels like like it's well thought out, like it's properly planned out, and it's been presented in a sensible way, so that I don't feel overwhelmed by the change. I know some people do. Reading Facebook gets a bit salty on there, especially every day with the new release.
We're going to have a segment. We're going to have a segment where you pick the saltiest comment you've seen on Facebook and we discuss, because I know you look at them, and I know, unlike me, you wade in. I think every now and then I wade in, but I don't very often. And I usually do it with a big massive script and all the rest, where I've seen some cracking responses from you. So I'd love to have a little segment, Ben's Grumblers, we'll call it. And then
'cause I love getting wound up by it.
I know, man. I know you do. I get links constantly of like, look at this doofus, and it's just brilliant.
Yeah, but I think it's quite fun. But actually, when you pick away at the surface of some of those things, there's interesting thoughts going around, that perhaps are presented in a crappy way. I think it's made me think differently about things, and I really enjoy the Facebook communities, because as much as there's a lot of bitching, there's also an incredible amount of stuff being shared on there that just totally I would not have thought of. For example, today, on theme with Age of Sigmar, I saw a model painted, the Stormcast guy from the new Hero Quest box set, Warhmmer Quest box set, and they've painted his head a shining blue colour, separate, like a real bright colour, with the burnished kind of gold armour, and it just looks amazing. And I will link that on Facebook so people know what I'm talking about. I'd have never thought to have done that, and there it is on Facebook. So for me, actually, as much as those communities can be a bit salty, they're just a great source of fun.
Yeah.
And good ideas.
Yeah. Well, certainly good point to end today's discussion on Age of Sigmar, is talking about community and how cool it is. So that's us on Age of Sigmar for this week. We're going to be back in a minute, guys, to tell you a little bit about a project we've got in the offing around the Tale of Many Gamers style thing. Thanks for listening in to Age of Sigmar, and we'll be back soon.
See you in a bit, guys.
Welcome back then. So, the pod has nearly reached the planet's surface. It's almost time for Ben and I to go forth, crusade, and bring some excitement about the hobby to people. They don't know what's going to hit them. But lastly, before we do that, we wanted to talk about our Tale of Many Gamers, or basically a flashy way to give us an excuse to start something new for 8th edition.
Yeah, basically.
Ben has decided that he wants to do Space Wolves, and I need to give him a bloody good drubbing. So it's Thousand Suns. Revenge is a dish best served with a lot of dust, apparently. So
dust.
we don't really know quite what form it's going to take yet, how many units we're going to do. I've already started tapping up other members of my games group to get involved as well. But essentially, Ben has a lot of not Thousand Suns. Ooh. Whoa!
God,
a lot of Space Wolf miniatures. Because he's been drinking heavily. No, Ben doesn't drink. So. He has a lot of Space Wolf miniatures. I don't need any more miniatures, but I'd want some more miniatures. So I am going to do some Thousand Suns to fight them. So what are we going to do, Ben? How many units are you going to paint, Ben?
Walking funeral urns.
Yeah, all is dust, my friend. All is dust.
And you can use it to fertilise a planet,
Potentially, yes.
So, points-wise, what are we going to do? Because
we
this
don't
is all
know,
about
do we?
committing now, isn't it?
We don't know. How many points?
No,
how many points is a man? Who knows?
Well, we'll find out tomorrow. I think.
I reckon we should try and do a squad and a single miniature. So, for example, and that's over a 4-week period.
Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable.
If we said we were going to do a squad and a character, or a squad and a transport, or a squad and a tank, or a tank and a tank.
I think so. And because I think that's perfectly achievable, because we've spoken about it already on this podcast, and I'm sure at times, if you listen carefully, you can hear our kids in the background. But part of this is about fitting hobby around our lives, and I think what is an achievable amount to paint in a month is for some people they've got free time, and others they don't. And I think one of the things that we want to explore a little bit is how we fit our hobby into our lives. And I think a squad and a vehicle is a very achievable thing. I will point out that in painting the vehicle, I will be learning how to use an airbrush for the first time, so that could turn out to be utterly catastrophic, or pretty awesome. Don't know. We'll see. So that sounds pretty good. And gaming-wise, how are we going to crack on with that? Because Tale of Many Gamers is fairly pointless without gaming.
Well, I think we're going to have to be realistic. I reckon if we could play every 2 months, that would be good.
Yeah, because reminding listeners that we live in quite a long way away. But hopefully in between we'll be playing with people local to us. And I'll be talking about taking my army out and playing people local to me. But then every couple of months, getting to play Dan and seeing how we're going and sharing those experiences with the new 8th edition rules. Are we going to go for a competitive play, or should we narrative it up a bit and see how things go?
I think once we've got the rule books and stuff, that'll give us a chance to decide. But my gut feeling is saying narrative and power levels. Because it's easier to add up. That's where my gut feeling is with it. I think it suits our styles. But then equally, Ben, you've just got a new club starting up, so some of it may be led more by those guys. So what
they're playing.
Yeah, they might want to play matched play, and in that case, we might go match play.
Yeah, definitely. Starting a new club is always really exciting, isn't it? Because it normally comes out of actually a group of gamers in an area realising that, my local club is an hour and a half away, or it's in Plymouth, which is an hour away, or Bude, which is round back lanes and God knows what into the dark ages. And a group of people coming together and saying, we need a gaming club here so we can play here and not have to travel for hours. So, and there's quite a lot of excitement, and listening to the guys on the Facebook page is really quite cool. They've got ideas, and they were meeting for the first time tonight, which is great timing and bad timing in a sense. But hopefully, what will come out of that is a regular meeting gaming club. And I think setting up a new gaming club is always an exciting thing, because you get to play on new scenery, building new scenery, lots of stuff to do.
Yeah,
and meeting new people,
quite
expanding your community,
especially with the scenery side.
You've set up a few yourself, haven't you?
Yeah. The first one is still the biggest, and that was in a pub, or it is in a pub, which is fantastic.
Is it still going?
Yeah, it's still going. Yeah.
It's the one in the basement, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Cross Swords.
Yeah.
So down near Plymouth. Really enjoyed setting that up, but I would say certainly when we really expanded it, I was 17, 18. I was very fortunate to have a job, and I spent an awful lot of money and a lot of time to do all the scenery and get everything going. And I think in hindsight, that was a lot of money. So, but it was good fun. And it is good to have a gaming club. But what I have found, because I've recently, or about 2 years ago, started one myself, and whilst we were growing, it just takes a lot of your hobby time, and that's limited. If you're building scenery for 10 tables at a games club, you could paint a lot of miniatures in that time. And that's why I'm really pleased that I'm really lucky that I've got Bristol Independent down the road, and if I want a game within 15 minutes, I can be there, setting up on a table, playing a game. It's really good.
Yeah, and we will post links to all these places. So Cross Swords, Bristol Independent Gaming, and if the one I'm gonna be going along to, if that develops a Facebook page and a community, then we'll post links for that too. Because if people are listening to this and they're local to us, pop down and see us, play a game, join in. We'd love to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd echo that, definitely. So for next time then, I am going to try and get a unit of Thousand Suns painted, Ben. One box set.
Okay. There has to be a proviso here. If I see one dead space wolf on any of your bases, all right, I'm going to burn your hobby room.
Right. I'm just carefully putting down the knife and the space wolf miniature I was holding.
No, it's fair, because what I think would be pretty cool, but I quite like theming models, bases, and surroundings depending on the battles that you've played. So I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, so I'm going to tie my bases in with my corn. So with my corn, they're on like a deserty, not desert, not a blasted wasteland, I suppose, with little piles of skulls.
Yeah.
And dead tufts. So with the Zinch, I want to do the same blasted wasteland, but instead of skulls, little crystals, and paint up little crystals and things.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It will still fit, but it'll have that theme, because ultimately the dream is a huge Chaos army that can then fight against a huge Imperial army.
Yeah. There's you can get crystals, can't you? For clear plastic crystals from companies like greenstuff.com and stuff like that. So
yeah, I've got a little pot full of them. Are
you going to paint them or leave them crystal coloured?
Paint them.
Paint them, yeah.
Definitely. All day long.
Are you on the school of thought of we're off topic now completely, but we might diverge sort of quite a lot when we're talking.
And yes, I am of that school of thought.
Yeah, where you paint everything so it brings it in line rather than having, clear plastic and stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't. Oh yeah. I see. I have left the plastic canopies on my Eldar from a long time ago, and I'm not sure.
What, see-through ones?
Yeah.
I'm totally for see-through canopies. Yeah, that is definite. But when it comes to things like the crystal at the top of the Necron monolith, yeah, that bad boy gets painted. I'm sorry. Yeah, because green plastic just looks guffing. I'm sorry.
And on that note, that's fantastic. Right. Well, thank you all for joining us, the two peas in a pod, for our first episode and our first go at podcasting. We hope we've not. Yeah. Nobody's asleep. If you are, wake up, wake up. It's it's over. You've survived. We're about to make planetfall in our pod. Maybe go to bed. In fact, it's getting late, but it's been fantastic chatting with you, Ben.
Yeah, you too,
I really do hope everybody's enjoyed it. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. I'm Dan.
Yeah, and please get involved on the Facebook. Really, we'll have a page there. Please leave comments. We'd love to hear your feedback and improve it. That's the whole point. We want to do a podcast that people want to listen to. So please get involved on the Facebook.
And he's Ben. Thank you very, very much, and good night, guys.